Hi, my name is Ilona Kotz, and last year on a windy August day in Snowdonia National Park, I decided to propose to my boyfriend. I was really nervous. I kept thinking, am I really doing this? I had it all planned out in my head, but honestly, I kind of thought something would come along and derail it. The ring wouldn't arrive in time, or it would rain too much to go for a walk. But the ring arrived and the weather held, so here it was, playing out in front of my eyes like a film I couldn't pause or a ride I couldn't stop. So I just held on tight to his hand and the ring in my right-hand pocket. As we climbed further up, other more serious doubts bubbled up to the surface. Will people think I'm impatient? Opportunistic? Am I taking this away from him? Am I really doing this? But I try to stay grounded in the moment, and as I focus on each step, it feels like they're bringing me closer and closer to another reality, another version of myself. If I do this, I thought, I'm not going to be the same person who walks back down off this mountain. This is a full-on Van Gennep, Joseph Campbell style rite of passage, and it's mine, and it's exciting. Welcome to Tying Knots, a new podcast all about navigating marriage as a feminist in a complicated world. This is episode 1, which I'm calling The Engagement Conundrum, Part 1. My decision to be the proposer was a deliberate one. I was ready to marry the person I loved, and I wanted to play an active role in our story. To be the chooser felt romantic and empowering. But as a woman taking on the typical male role here, I couldn't help but get curious about the complex thoughts and feelings that it brought up for me, then and since. And the more I pulled on the thread of that giant knot, the more fascinated I became. Family and friends were very supportive, don't get me wrong. But I also got a lot of that so brave, modern, different of you. All badges I wear with pride, but all of this started to make me feel a little self-conscious. Was I really that strange in this day and age? When I asked a cousin if she would ever do the same, she sent back one of those embarrassed monkey emojis with the hands over the eyes. You know the one. And I started to get the suspicion I was, in fact, being strange. Turns out, in both the UK and the US, a staggering minority of women in heterosexual couples propose to their partners. There's not a ton of research in this area, but as recently as 2020, the Not Engagement survey found only 1% of women surveyed in the US and worldwide proposed to their husbands. While in the same year, the Marriage Proposal survey in the UK found only 16%. Slightly higher, but still in the minority, and a little perplexing when the same survey also found that 57% of women said they would be willing to do it, and 76% of men thought that women should. According to the research, it seems that despite being committed to egalitarian lifestyles, at least here in the UK and the US, when it comes to symbolic traditions like proposals, heterosexual couples still overwhelmingly favour traditional gendered norms, what Lamont in her 2014 paper negotiating courtship called symbolic gendering. Based on 38 in-depth interviews with middle-class, college-educated women in the US, Lamont's study concludes that even though women with higher education and financial independence are seeking equality on a practical, everyday level, think childcare, household chores, splitting the rent, it seems that they are not looking to reflect that shift in their dating conventions. For example, who typically pays for dates? Who decides when you get to move from casual to committed? Or who gets to propose. However, what really piqued my interest was what Lamont tells us about how women are navigating these seemingly clashing ideas. Firstly, Lamont describes something she terms choice rhetoric. Many of the women she talked to would rationalize their approach to dating by explaining it as simply a personal preference without investigating that preference any deeper, framing it as just common knowledge, the done thing, or minimizing its impact entirely, saying, it's just a silly tradition, what's the big deal? Over a third of women also reference men's essential nature, implying that men were hardwired to date this way, needing the thrill of the chase, to be in control, it being their role to pursue. while others expressed concern that taking that aspect of dating away from men would make them unappealing partners. However, Lamont's research also revealed that many of these same women often hid what she called the backstage work. Maybe a few of us can relate to this. Usually there's an official version of an engagement, the story that gets posted on Instagram or the one you share over cocktails with your friends. But that story probably won't acknowledge the mutual negotiation, timelines, or ultimatums, as if there's something undesirable about those kinds of details that should be hidden or downplayed, especially if initiated by a woman. Essentially, it seems there's a cognitive dissonance going on. All the women interviewed in Lamont studied were high or potentially high earners who had liberal, progressive backgrounds and invested heavily in education, with 58% of women interviewed having completed postgraduate education. A few even labelled themselves feminists. Yet the majority had courtship narratives that followed very familiar patterns, and more than that, believed that doing so would have no effect in achieving equality in their marriages. This dissonance is well illustrated by one interviewee, Brianna, who said she liked knowing she had the resources to walk away if things didn't work out, but that she simply had a preference for dominant men. Submissiveness in a man was gross to her, and women who insisted on splitting meals on dates were forcing their independence on men. She goes on to say, "Even if he's not truly dominant, even if you're his equal, I still feel like you should let him feel like a man." Which, side note, is a weird statement to me, not least because where do we draw the line between role-playing gender stereotypes, as she suggests, and simply living them? But anyway, even when women in the study played around with gender norms on purpose, Lamont found they still ended up reaffirming them in subtle ways. For example, another interviewee, Caroline, spoke about actively pursuing a guy on a night out at a strip club, but then making sure to let him call her the next day to arrange the official first date. The narrative of the guy pursuing the woman is toyed with, but in the end upheld. Ultimately, only 9 out of 38 women expressed concern about their dating habits when it came to gender, while only 4 actively rejected them. According to Lamont, however, while seemingly harmless in the moment, this approach may be undermining our greater relationship goals. This reinforcement during the dating phase, even when done subtly, props up those old gendered roles and weakens our ability to negotiate down the line. While there isn't enough research to draw a direct correlation between dating habits and marriage equality, we can observe the levels of equality in marriage today. Namely that while the percentage of women in the workforce has set new records year on year, UCL researchers who analysed data from over 8,500 different sex couples between 2010 and 2011 found that less than 7% of couples share housework equally, explaining our study suggests that even couples who share egalitarian ideas about the roles of men and women may not be able to counter potential obstacles to equality in the UK. Now, as someone who lives there, hearing that even the couples who believe in equality are struggling to achieve it is a pretty shocking thing. And if you're thinking that things may have improved over the last decade, a UK study published in 2022 on the effects of the pandemic on domestic labour showed that for a short time, unpaid work did become more equal across genders during the first lockdown, but only if the male partner lost work. Post-lockdown, all couples reverted back to pre-lockdown or even greater levels of gender inequality, unless the man didn't regain his previous working hours. So clearly, equal distribution of domestic labour is possible, but only if the guy has nothing else to do? While women seemingly take on the brunt of the housework, even when in full-time employment. So, what's going on here? Why is there such a gulf between actively seeking equality in our everyday lives and, well, performing it in our most intimate and symbolic moments? Why, I ask myself, as educated, emancipated women, why still this underlying embarrassment and aversion to getting down on one knee? These are big questions, but over the next few episodes, I'm going to try my best to explore 3 distinct reasons why I think women today are still put off by the idea of proposing, and why I think maybe we need to reconsider. Join us next episode for part 2 of the Engagement Conundrum, where we will be discussing the script, examine what an 8-year-old me thinks of romance, and why fighting our own dragons can have its advantages. New episodes of Tying Knots will be coming out weekly from today, 16th of August. However, I'm still in the process of editing episodes, so if you or anyone you know has a relevant story or thoughts they'd like to share about when modern dating, engagements and feminism have butt heads, or you just want to say hi, please get in touch at tyingknotspod@gmail.com. I'm really interested in hearing from women of all backgrounds, as well as from trans, non-binary and queer folk too. And links to the articles referenced in today's episode can be found in the show notes. I'm not going to lie, I've been pretty nervous about bringing you this, our first season of Tying Knots, but I'm really excited about where we're going. At the moment, this is very much a one-woman operation, just me, a laptop, a microphone, and an idea. So I just want to say a really big thank you for listening and being a part of this. If you'd enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving a great review, subscribing, or spreading the word about us. Your support is so appreciated. See you next time.